Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mic Check 2. My name is Rachel, and we have
Ajai
and Sean.
And today we are joined by Mallory and Larry. I will allow them to introduce themselves.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I've actually been on the podcast before, but I'm really excited to be back. I'm an LPC. I do counseling at St. Hope Foundation, mainly located in Sugar Land.
Ooh. Glad to have you back.
Welcome back, Mallory.
Thank you.
Well, hi, my name is Larry. I'm currently the referral coordinator at St. Hope Foundation at the Bel Air Center, but we do referrals for every single location. I've been at St. Hope since 2010. I've been there for a long time. I started in prevention as a risk reduction coordinator, then moved to HIV testing coordinator, then prevention manager, and after COVID, I magically appeared. I'm now working in referrals, but I'm happy to be here. I've done it all.
You've done it all. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to St. Hope?
Funny story. Before I came to St. Hope, I was working in HIV in Atlanta, and my roommate moved here to Houston, and he was like, "There's a new company I'm working at. I think you will like it. I think you should come, and you should, apply." I'm like, okay. My siblings, I have two siblings who live here in Houston, and they've been like, "Why don't you move closer to home?" I'm like, well, okay, I'll give it a try. So I applied. And I'm here.
Voila.
I'm here.
Well, we are happy to have both of you here today. So our topic for episode 12 is going to be love after HIV. So let's go ahead and just dive right into it.
So we wanted to discuss this just because February is HIV Awareness Month. And we did, of course, just have Valentine's Day pass by. So we just wanted to go over some myths, clear up some misconceptions about relationships dealing with HIV.
We sometimes get a lot of patients that come in and one partner may be positive and the other is negative. So I guess a hard question that I know people deal with is disclosing their status to their partner. So can we talk a little bit more about what that would look like and a healthy way to do that?
Yeah, so in my office, I do talk about that quite a bit with a lot of patients. So there's no right or wrong way, or there's no perfect way to tell somebody you have HIV. I think the short answer is before you have sex, because you want to give somebody the option on whether they want to or not. But what I usually tell people of how to disclose is, kind of plan it out a little bit, pick a place or a location that you feel like would be safe for you, or when your partner's not too upset or, not in the middle of sex either, you want it to be pretty neutral. And that's really with any serious conversation you want to have. So just a tip out there. But you can also plan it out. Sometimes it helps to write out how you want to say it, practice it with a friend or in front of a mirror, just so you kind of get used to saying it, especially if it's your first time. And then anticipate that, the person may have questions when you tell them, they may need time to process. So, some people freak out if what if they don't message me back right away? Or what if I don't hear from them for a long time? Give them some time. They may have to process, but educating the person, that you plan to have sex with, because, they may not have all the information. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of stigma, and I know we can probably get to that later. But yeah, just basically planning it out, staying in a neutral location. Another thing to consider is when in the relationship to tell a person. So do you tell them right off the bat, as soon as you get to know them, or do you kind of wait a little bit? Do you maybe wait after you've had a few dates? So that really just depends on the person. There's no right or wrong way, again, on which way to do that. But some people don't always want to say it the first time they meet somebody. They want to kind of get to know them, see is this even a person I can trust with this information about me? Is this a safe person to talk about it with? So yeah, you can kind of use your best judgment on that, on whether you want to tell them right away or, wait till you get to know them a little bit more.
And even with that is, there's a really big thing I know a lot of our patients see and experience. And I just want to put it out there. Sometimes people won't be receptive once you disclose your status. So sometimes people will approve of it. Some people will be like, this just isn't for me. So how would you, educate someone just to be prepared to cope with that possible rejection?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a possibility. You know, they may say no, or they may decide, you know, I don't want to move forward. So I'm just honest with, you know, people when we're having this conversation that this is a real possibility. And if they say no, that's okay. That's their choice. And so if they don't, you know, kind of prepare yourself for that. You can have maybe a friend on standby, or maybe in the other room, you know, just to have like, hey, I'm going to, you know, disclose this information. I may need a little extra support after this, you know, if they say no. So you can get some support from a friend. No is definitely a possibility. I think it comes with the risk of love. You know, there's always risks. You're either going to be rejected or accepted. But don't be afraid of rejection to take that step, because somebody will accept you.
Right. And if they say no, then obviously that person probably wasn't meant for you anyway. So
Right.
it's okay.
Yeah, you probably
It's
don't
not
want
a
to be
bad
with
thing.
that person anyways. Exactly.
Right.
And I love how you said like love is risky anyway. So
Regardless.
yeah.
Yeah. Any vulnerability, you know, is risky.
Yeah.
It's just hard dating in general.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. It's hard dating when you're negative
Yes.
or you're positive. It's going to always be hard.
2023.
Because people always have the things that they like and they don't like anyway.
Preferences, yeah.
Yeah, your preferences, it could be anything. Like, I don't want to date somebody with kids, or you dated somebody and then the person's like, oh, I never want to get married, and you like, well, that's on my list.
That's on my
So
list.
it's really anything. And I think sometimes people, you know, we get in our head and we kind of zone in on the things that fit towards us, and we're just like, oh my god, no. Because people are picky.
They are. They're so picky. Even like for me, like during testing, you know, whenever you find out a new patient find out they're HIV positive, that's one of the first questions they have about love. And I always used to tell the clients like the 30-second rule of rejection. You meet someone, they don't like your status. Never let that change how you feel about yourself. You only give them 30 seconds of your time, you know. So if I meet you and I'm like, hey, you know, this is what I got going on. If you don't like it, okay, I'm not meant for you. Don't let that change how you feel about yourself.
Right.
We all go through different things, whether it's being negative or positive. We all go through, that's a human reaction. Rejection is a human reaction. So don't let that change the way you feel about yourself.
Because when one door closes.
Another door will always open.
Right now, hashtag open doors.
Yeah, I think that's always.
We've got our first hashtag of the episode.
I think that's always like the biggest thing, like especially with me doing case management and stuff. People are always like, "Oh, you think I could?" I'm like, it's people that didn't had relationships, and I'm still trying to get past day 3. Okay, people been together 15 years, and I'm just like. Okay, well, another day 2, guys. Another day 2.
Yeah. Another point I wanted to make is a lot of times I think people will mirror your reaction. So if you make it this big monster, it's like this horrible thing, you know, people are going to perceive it in that way. But if you're like, hey, you know, I got this thing, I go to my appointments, all this stuff, they're going to kind of mirror your reaction to that.
That is so.
And then another thing too is just like, especially if you seem like educated and you know what you're talking about, that kind of just helps, because, I mean, even before I started working here, it was a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I can explain to people, and they're just like, "Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that either." But hey, I'm here to tell you. So I think also, like Mallory said, just being able to explain it well, and explain CD4 count and viral load and PrEP and all these options that you can also have in your healthy relationship. I think that's the stuff that people don't know about.
Right.
Now, it's funny that you said healthy relationship. We used to do an intervention at St. Hope called Healthy Relationships, and it was a skill-based intervention for HIV positive people. So we would invite people to come in, and it'll be a group of people, sometimes male, female, sometimes males, only females, and we talked about the stressors of dealing with their status, sexual behavior, how to cope with it, the stresses of dating, checking your head and your heart when you're in spaces when you want to tell someone, like making sure you pick a space, a safe space for them. If they kind of look aggressive, don't tell them at all.
Right.
Pick places like a public place like a restaurant or your home, because at your home, the exits, which windows you can get out quicker, and what doors you can get out quicker. We talked about a lot of those things in there, but we definitely talked about, how to deal with your stresses of being HIV positive.
Oh, we need to bring that back.
Yeah, we're gonna bring
Okay, bring it back.
2023 running back.
So, we do do a lot of myth busting on this show. So I know a misconception may be like, oh, if I'm HIV positive, then I should only date people that are HIV positive.
Not true.
Not true.
Definitely not true.
Right. Because I guess people, I'm sure y'all have experienced, they may feel like more comfortable, but that isn't, I feel like you shouldn't have to put yourself in a box just because of the status.
I think sometimes so. I've been working in HIV since 2009, and there's been a total different shift compared to now because, of course, PrEP wasn't out yet. So, you find a lot of times with patients, they may not, it's realistic, they may not reveal their status because of the trauma that it can cause. And realistically, as a gay male, if I've been with 5 partners, more than likely one of them are HIV positive. So you take all those things and now with the education that's available, that you have so many options, and the options make everything beautiful. There's options for PrEP as prevention. There's options if the patient is undetectable, because if they're undetectable, there's a 99% chance that you can't spread the virus even having unprotected sex. So I think at this point now, with all education, if people are willing to learn, there's so much information for them to know that they can have sex and be safe. So a lot of misconceptions come from not knowing. And of course, some people say ignorance is bliss, but they may just not know. And it may be your point to educate them, to let them know about their options.
Yeah, I feel like it keeps coming back to education because that is so important because of the misconceptions out there. And you absolutely can be with, there can be a couple with one who's HIV positive and one who's not, using the correct protections that you need. But you do not have to stay with a partner just because they're also HIV positive, but maybe they're toxic for you, or, maybe they're not that great of a partner, but they've accepted your status. So, there are options out there as far as when it comes to love, and HIV, your HIV status does not determine your self-worth. That's for sure.
So don't settle.
Don't settle.
settle.
Absolutely.
Right. Hashtag don't settle.
I knew you were going to hashtag me.
I love
I knew
that.
you were going to hashtag me. I think to another point I feel like we're picking up on is like you want your partner to be patient with you, so you also have to be patient with them when you're disclosing. So you can't just expect everybody to accept it. You have to be patient too and know that they're going to, like Mallory was saying, have questions. So you have to be open-minded to answer questions. So I think, like you said, education is really important to make sure like you can answer the questions properly.
Yeah, or definitely or if somebody does disclose to you, you can always just go to your PCP and just ask questions like, what could be my next step? How do I, how do I move forward? Or what should I do? You don't always have to rely on that other person, especially if you love that person, you like that person, and you see it going somewhere. Go to your PCP, ask some questions. You never know what's out there.
And even speaking of like going to PCPs, you could even bring your partner with you to the doctor appointment just so they can get information or educational pamphlets, things of that nature. And let's just say, is that safe to say it's okay to bring your partner with you to the doctor appointment? And
definitely, I think that's where trust begins. If you're dating someone and you're HIV positive and you decide to go bring them to the doctor and they're willing to come, you're building trust already that they're willing to walk in the door with you to learn. So that's a way to start building the foundation that, hey, this is my doctor. I'm undetectable. Doctor, can you explain what undetectable is? And let them know that, well, they have this certain amount of copies and you're like 99% safe. You only have like a 1% chance compared to 99. And, 99 is in your favor compared to 1. So, you think about the odds of it. So I think sometimes hearing it from a person who's very versed in the situation or in HIV or the education of transmission, it makes the partner a little easier. And of course, the trust is being built because you're willing to come, you're willing to learn. And then that's the option of that partner getting on PrEP to protect themselves also. So you have like double protection, and who don't want double protection,
Right. And it's also ways to build, it's just intimate. It's ways to build intimacy also, just to be there, hear and see how it goes. Because I know most people probably just think like they don't even know what goes on in a doctor's appointment when you have any type of chronic illness, like even diabetes. Like that's just important because then like, oh, my partner can't have this, so maybe we should not go to get 17 pounds of boiled seafood and then go get ice cream. Just stuff like that. But you know what I mean? It just helps you to be mindful because you care for this person, so you want the best for them. So you're just getting that information on how to move forward in your relationship.
Nice.
And on the flip side, if you need more support, maybe this is your first appointment, going to see your PCP, your partner can come for that extra support too. And again, with that building of trust. So yeah, just to think of it from like the patient perspective, you can have extra support there.
So I know the big thing is just continuing to have a healthy sex life. I know you kind of talked about the protection on both levels and things like that, and PrEP being available now. Can you explain a little bit more about PrEP and like what it may not cover for those who don't know?
So PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis. So an easy way of explaining PrEP, like PrEP is called prevention. So it's a form of prevention. So basically you're taking a medication. So if you come in contact with the virus, it blocks you from transmitting the virus. So that's what PrEP is in place for. So it's the pre. So then you have PEP, so the post-exposure prophylaxis, so you have to explain both of them together. So PrEP is like a daily regimen that you take, and PEP is post-exposure prophylaxis. So it's not only used for sexual situations, also like, for example, if a nurse is in the office and actually stick themselves on a needle from an HIV positive person, they're gonna put them on PEP. So it's a 30-day antiretroviral drug that they will take for 30 days to ensure that they don't get the virus, because HIV usually takes about 72 hours in a healthy body to develop, compared to a not so healthy body can be up to 24 hours. So PrEP is in place to prevent. PEP is in place to stop from a situation like a rape or those kind of situations, something immediate. So PrEP is a good source. So if you don't know if your partner is positive, so you have to kind of give yourself the options of PrEP. So for me, in my head, when I worked in prevention, so you have to like, why would PrEP be good for you? Like, so a person who have a lot of risky sex, they'll be a good candidate for PrEP. Or if a person is in that type of relationship, as we say, mixed status or serodiscordant couple, which meaning one is positive, one is negative. So even if the partner is, like I said about the double protection, if the partner is just say newly HIV positive, PrEP would be a good resource, because of course, even with condoms, they do break.
Right.
You having a good time at the club at night, a condom might not be used. Like, you have to think about
the real world.
The real world. We always have to put things make it a real perspective. So PrEP is in place to prevent it from happening. PEP is in place so if something did happen, you take the medication properly for 28 days to ensure that you don't get the virus.
So with the prevention, you can start it like any time?
Yes. So just say that me and you were dating. And me and you were dating, and I'm HIV positive, but just say I just found out I was HIV positive. You come to the doctor with me, the doctor will recommend you getting on PrEP because we're going to engage in sex. So realistically, we're adults. We're going to engage in sex.
For our listeners who are only listening and not on our YouTube, I love how Larry is using quotations for all of his wording. So y'all have to watch this episode. Stop right now and go to YouTube and watch this so y'all can see the quotations.
So realistically, we're going to have sex. So the doctor will offer you the option of PrEP because, you'll be at a higher risk because you're being penetrated. The thing about that, penetration is always going to be the highest risk. So the option will be offered to you to be on PrEP. Of course, it's your option, but you have the option of taking it. But just say, for example, that you don't want to get on PrEP, and then I just started going to doctor, but now I'm undetectable. There's a 99% chance that you still won't get it. So that's the beautiful thing, how far HIV has come along, and so many options for people to realize that it's okay. HIV is okay. Being in love is okay. Having sex is okay, because you have options to be safe.
Right.
And I'm going to do a little shameless plug, which is like perfect, because, if you come to St. Hope, you can also come to St. Hope and get your PrEP.
Yeah.
So you will go to one appointment with your partner, and then you could just slide into the next appointment and sign up for sign up for PrEP. It's so simple.
Yes, a 2-for-1.
A 2-for-1, definitely.
Another shameless plug, we do the PEP too. So if you ever, if somebody ever does disclose after the fact, because I know that does happen to people.
It does.
People, sexual activity will happen, and then I don't know, some kind of way the conversation comes up. You can always go to your doctor and ask for PEP too. Come to St. Hope if you're ever in that situation.
Now, just to add on to that also, now when you're thinking about being prescribed for PrEP, so it works a little differently for males and females. So I'm going to say for male and female is bottoming, penetration. So for a male, it takes about 7 days for the medication to develop in the system to be safe. For a female, it's 21 days. So it takes a little longer. So the female have to wait a little longer, or a person who do injections, like drug injections, 21 days for them also. But for a male who's in an experience of bottoming or being penetrated, even females, they both are bottoming. And I know it sounds funny. It's 7 days for males and 21 days for females.
That is so interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to wait a little longer,
You can't just go crazy.
You can't go
right
crazy. Now, if your partner's undetectable, you maybe go a little crazy,
A little bit more fun.
We're going to focus on the double protection, I think when people hear like double, like Superman, you're double safe, it makes them a little more comfortable.
So I know another thing too with speaking to sex, a lot of people major concern would be pregnancy. If they're still able to have children and experience that type of experience.
So, of course, pregnancy can happen. I'm just going to jump into it. Pregnancy can happen. And, I know sometimes it's hard for me personally, being a person who has worked in this field for so long. To me, honestly, it's so hard to see kids these days being born with HIV because of so many options. Of course, pregnancy can happen. So if a person came to St. Hope and just say the male is positive, the female is negative, and they want to have kids. So first thing the doctor's going to engage after they do their labs is their viral load, because that's the most important thing, the viral load. Right. So I think in the state of Texas, still less than 20 copies consider you undetectable, but it's based on the machine. So if y'all can see visually, so basically the machine, this is the body. So just say all the water was out of here. So basically the machine goes in to look for copies. So they only can see up to 20. So it could be 19, it could be 1. You could have literally 1 copy of HIV in your system. So different states have different rules of undetectable, but here is less than 20. So generally for a person who's trying to get pregnant, there's some studies that say like less than 1,000 copies, but our doctors would say undetectable. I hit the table. Undetectable would be because it's 99% chance that that they can't spread the virus. And of course, they'll put the female on PrEP also, just to have that barrier to ensure that the child is not positive. So that would be the options that they would use. And they used to do something called sperm washing. I don't know if they still do that. They can actually wash sperm too. So,
I think breast milk is also one of those
they can,
like bodily fluids, right?
Yeah. So like even like a positive female, they're not allowed to breastfeed because there's blood in the milk. And remember, even a child can be born HIV positive. That don't mean that they are positive, because baby doesn't have their own immune system. It takes some time for them to wean off the mother's immune system to have their own immune system. So a child born positive doesn't mean that they're going to be positive. So
yes, I learned that with my child. She has a sickle cell. So originally she didn't have to take medication for the first 3 months because she still had my immune system. So it's funny how that works. But you did mention breastfeeding. So,
yeah, that was just one little thing that I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, like, what about breastfeeding, like, afterwards, like, after you have the baby, so being careful with that. But I think, the point of basically what you're saying, and we talked about sex and pregnancy and basically living life, this is things that we do in life. We have sex and we have babies if you choose to, or if you can. But you can still have a fulfilling life doing all the things that you want to do. Being in relationships, having a family, having HIV does not stop you or prevent you from doing any of these things.
Yeah, it's not a definer. It's just, you just have to be educated and, like you said, take your medications to be undetectable and live a healthy life.
Stay protected, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about protection, I know a big thing, we have PrEP, we have PEP. Of course, there's the obvious, which is making sure you're using condoms. What if a partner were to, I guess we kind of answered that. If they say that they're allergic to condoms, then you still can be on PrEP, you still have PEP.
Well, yeah, there's still more options with that. We have to think about, when we think about sex is adventurous. There's a lot of options. So it depends. Like if someone's allergic to latex, there's non-latex condoms. They can use that. you just have to really think about it, because some people honestly don't want to use condoms. So
yeah, I was like, don't let that. I'm allergic. How am I'm gonna use Larry's?
I'm allergic
to condoms.
So yeah,
we've all heard that.
You give all the options. So like,
this is our realistic episode.
Realistic. So you give them all options. There's latex condoms and there's female condoms, and also for females, you can insert the condom 6 hours before sex. So like, you go into the club, you might get drunk, the condom's already be in there. Yeah. Now, of course, with the female condom, practice makes perfect. You have to practice using those. You got to practice with it. It takes practice. Or, there's so many options how you can get people to like really enjoy condoms. Like there's something called cheeking, where you can put the condom in your mouth and put it on the person's penis. You try to make sex safe and fun, because you get them to try it. Everything. Sex is fun when you want to try something new. But we have to think about, always in your mind, you always want to be safe. Right. Yes. Safe is always the checklist, but you can be fun
and safe.
Yeah, that's sexy,
I'm over here like, I'm sounding real boring in the bedroom. I'm over here cheeking.
She's taking notes.
Taking notes. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I never heard of that one.
So even with condoms, and I'll just say that, like, I guess prevention, like, is still always so fresh on me, because it's something that I use daily. Always bring your own condoms. Don't question your condoms. Question their condoms. People do crazy things. You know that your condoms are not expired. Everybody can't fit a gold wrapper. Like, be realistic. It's, we have to have real talk and real conversation.
Look, Ajai over here just
clients.
like, come on, Ajai.
I would advise
Look at Ajai.
Yeah. Everybody, you have to be realistic, because if the condom doesn't fit, you're putting yourself at risk. It's like having raw sex. If it doesn't fit properly, if the person's special parts are too big, it can break. If it's not big enough to fit the condom, you're like having raw sex, and you may not even know. So you have to make sure, when you think about sex and fun, whether you're negative or positive, make sure you put yourself in a place where, what am I at risk for?
Well, since we're talking about condom usage and being safe and having fun, I know there is another option called a dental dam. We do offer them at the clinics, along with condoms, of course. Could you guys go into dental dams? Now, disclaimer for our listeners: this episode is
his expertise.
It's a little spicy, but it's being realistic, and we just want to promote healthy sexual relationships, of course, with regular relationships. So,
it's sex education. That's important.
Yeah, sex education is important. You learn it in middle
St.
school.
Hope is here for you. We do provide all of these resources as well.
Yes. So basically, a dental dam is it's a thin piece of latex. So of course, and I'll give the option with that also if the person said they're allergic to latex. So, dental dam is another option we have, and it comes in different flavors, because dental dams is in place for oral barriers. So basically, you put it on the pink part. So our pink parts is our mouth, anus, vagina. That's the pink part. So we'll go for the anus or the vagina. So basically, it's a barrier to, put a barrier in front. So if, the partner is,
just a barrier. It's going to protect.
It's going to protection.
So, for fluids, for bodily fluids, it's to protect from bodily fluids. So if a person is allergic to latex, you can always use saran wrap. So it's an option, because you just want to put a barrier. Now, one thing with dental dam is best to wet the dental dam so it can stick, so it doesn't move, because you don't want it to move. So if they are allergic to latex, they can definitely use saran wrap. It's an option.
This reminds me of a 90s movie.
Booty call.
For our 90s babies out there.
For our 90s babies.
And then
90s baby.
And even like, there's a really big misconception that just because you're on PrEP and PEP and you want to engage in raw sex or risky sex, there's nothing else that can happen. That's not true, because you can still transmit other STDs, STIs.
STIs, yes, definitely. So that's another thing that you have to always consider. That's why it's important to get tested for everything. You can come to St. Hope, and when you want to start PrEP, or if you're HIV positive, you can talk to your doctor. You would have to get tested for everything, because there's risk in everything. People only kind of focus on HIV, which is crazy, but there's some stuff that can make it just as bad. Right. So, yeah.
So, how often would you recommend you and your partner getting tested?
So if you're in a monogamous relationship, I would say every 6 months. Especially if your partner is positive, I would say every 6 months. But if you're on PrEP, you have to get tested every 3 months. So you go into the doctor, get on PrEP, you have to get tested every 3 months, because of course if you don't take your medication. We know life happens. You're supposed to, you have the idea of PrEP is to take as prescribed. So you're supposed to take the medication every single day. So you get your medication, you get tested first, and you have to wait 3 months to get your next prescription because you're supposed to get tested every 3 months because you're taking the same antiretroviral drugs that are in some of the HIV medications. So every 3 months if you're on PrEP. But if you're in a serious monogamous relationship, I would say every 6 months. I mean, I've had clients come and get tested every month. Some people are paranoid, and then some people like to do like fun things. They like to do fun things. Yeah. So, and
I think it's very interesting because it's sometimes a misconception, like even if you're in just a relationship, exclusive relationship, that they think that you don't have to get tested. Like, oh, my partner doesn't have anything, so I'm good. So, but it's very...
we get that a lot.
We get that a lot. Like, oh no, she came back good, so I'm good. Especially in the male community, we see that. I was just laughing. Okay. Dating in 2023.
Oh yeah, that's really big. Like, I know people will be like, a lot of men sometimes depend on women, and they be like, oh, she good, so I know I'm good. Yeah. Where are your papers? Sir, please let me know. When is the last time you've been to a doctor?
Yeah.
In general,
because I mean, people lie. Like women can lie.
Being realistic, yeah.
Yeah, be for real. I ain't gonna.
Be for real. People don't know. Yeah. Let's start right there. People don't know because they're not going to the doctor.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of times people actually come in, new patients, and they meet with their case manager and they find out right there on the spot and they just genuinely don't know.
And it's not even just for HIV. It's other stuff. Like
other stuff
Larry's saying. Like, so
it's just in general. People just don't go to the doctor for whatever reason. And this is another shameless plug. Just come to St. Hope. Just come to St. Hope. In general, just a little physical. You can't see your breast stink, anything going wrong. Just come to St. Hope.
We have it all. I love it.
Your A1C out of control. Your vision blurry. You got a whole bunch of stuff going on. It's not normal. Just come to St. Hope.
Right.
Don't be afraid.
Go get the physical.
You need a little therapy.
Go get the physical.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if anything, just come and get the physical.
Physical.
Yeah, I was also going to say, don't be afraid to ask, potential partners, ask them questions like when is the last time you've been tested? What kind of safe sex practices do you use? It may seem embarrassing, but I promise you it's not totally healthy questions to ask, especially when you're going to be engaging in something intimate with somebody else.
So let me ask you, Mallory, I'm curious. So an HIV negative partner, if let's say they've already had the discussion, they're positive, the partner is positive, this person's negative, how should partner X feel if they're negative walking into the relationship? What do you think would be some good ground, I wouldn't say rules, but just like a nice little foundation to just start off with?
As far as what they're feeling or what to expect, or so they don't freak out, So I guess on the other side of it, it's okay to maybe be a little worried or maybe unsure, especially if you don't have all the correct information, or maybe you don't know what undetectable means, or what the stats are. So it's completely normal and okay to maybe be questioning or to feel unsure. So you can take initiative in your own hands in that case. Maybe do your own research, or like we talked about, going to appointments with your partner, educating yourself so that you have all the information that you need to make an informed decision.
And then a nice little plug I want to put out there. I like the word plug all of a sudden. It's a nice word.
Are you still in my shameless plug?
Okay, not a shameless plug, but just a thing that I've noticed within relationships. Don't freak out if you're let's say if partner X is negative and they're with a partner Y that's positive. Let's say they have a cold. Let's say they get start a cough or a sneeze. Don't freak out in a negative way, because that can kind of bring the person down a little bit. But could we just kind of touch on that a little bit?
So I think that's where it comes to education part. There's a TV show, one of my favorite TV shows that came out in the early 2000s called Noah's Ark. And basically it was a sitcom made based off of the Golden Girls, but flip it to Black gay men. And the guy, Ricky, he was the Blanche. He was the adventurous one, the very sexual one. So he fell in love with a doctor named Janito, and he was HIV positive. And Ricky got sick and they thought he was positive because he hadn't slept with so many people, but he was negative. So when him and Janito started dating, he started freaking out. So they were in the bed laying together and Janito started sneezing, like just crazy sneezing. So Ricky was freaking out and he was like, it's just allergies. So I think when you think about that, because people have paranoia about getting something or their partner, I think sometimes it's either they're going to get HIV or their partner's going to die from HIV. Mm-hmm. So I think most time is those two fields, extreme. So, I think it's just about education. He's like, Ricky, don't freak out. I'm undetectable. It's just allergies. But in his head, he couldn't get it right. But I think that's the issue sometimes. The fear of getting HIV and the fear of their partner dying. So education would always be important in that instance.
Yeah, and being sensitive towards your partner too. Maybe asking them like how they're feeling about their status, having constant communication. Communication is so important too. Just communicating with your partner, maybe ask them, if let's say you're positive and your partner's negative and they say something that's maybe offensive to you or that really bothered you, you can tell that to them like, hey, when you said this, it really didn't sit right with me, it made me feel this way, could you not do that again? And so having those kind of like constant conversations with your partner too is really important.
And I really like how earlier you said, like, if you own it, like, there's really nothing. There's something wrong. Yeah. But if you go in there, like, it's like a death sentence, like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Like, your partner's going to receive that emotion as well.
If somebody was to disclose something to me and then they just knew so much about it and it didn't leave a gray area for me, I would just be like, okay, all right. So I'm educated now. I feel smart. I feel safe.
Right. I feel like you know what you're talking about.
You prepared, because I would feel like, okay, this person really took the time to really think it out and think of all the questions that I may have, or they're just prepared to share this part of their life with me. So I'm going to be receptive.
Right.
And you want to be with a partner that's going to be receptive and listen to you, whether they make the choice to move forward or not. You want to be with someone who's going to be willing to listen to you and take the time to think about it and,
Definitely.
Yeah. Just be patient. I mean, I agree.
But going back, it's all about education. That's a key thing. And please educate yourselves, people. So if you're unsure, or if you just found out your partner's positive and you're not 100% sure, maybe they're not educated, you could just be like, hey babe, can I go? Would it be okay to go to the doctor's office with you, or even let them offer? Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, but education, like Larry and Mallory said, is key. So
yeah, education is always just key in this or in any situation, but especially with HIV because it's always new advancements. Like just me being in the office, always hearing stuff, it's just like, I started in St. Hope in 2014. It's been new drugs, it's new types of PrEP that's coming out. It's always something that's happening like every year. So it's always just big to just stay on that. If you're educated, to just constantly always bring in new information because it's always a new drug, it's always a new regimen. We got injectables and stuff now and all of this.
30-day injectables.
Right.
You don't have to watch a partner take a pill every day or be like, babe, did you take your pill today, or stuff like that.
So for me, one thing I definitely learned by coming into St. Hope, like it could be anyone. So a lot of times people think like, oh, that can't happen to me. So it's very important to educate yourself, take the safety precautions and things of that nature. Okay. So I did want to ask one question. So let's say both partners are HIV positive. So they begin to think like, oh, we don't have to take our medication maybe, or we don't have to get tested. Like we can just be young, wild, and free because we both are experiencing the same thing. I know, we don't want to just focus on one side of the barrel because you and both your partner could be HIV positive. That doesn't stop the safety precautions. Would that be correct?
So when you think of that, of course, mixed status comes as serodiscordant couples. When you think about two positive, that's concordant couples. So basically with that, there can be challenges with that because, most times since I've been working in this field, when a person found out their HIV status, the first thing like, well, maybe I should date someone positive. So, okay, dating someone positive. So if you engage in unprotected sex, so what's going to happen? So are you undetectable? And what if your partner's not undetectable? That can be an issue. That can be a real issue. So when you think about antiretroviral drugs, there are a lot of them. Like, every time you come to St. Hope, you can see the board full of drugs.
Right.
But there's only so many cocktails because every HIV regimen is in a cocktail. So which meaning there's a 3 or 4 or 5 pill formulary. So there's only so many cocktails. So just say that your partner, and when we think about HIV drugs, we got to think about treatment success and treatment failure. Because you can be on a prescription for a long time, body's fine, and just say something like some other things going on in your system that may conflict with the medication. Anything, life happens, things happen. So I'm just say that I'm positive and you're positive, but I'm taking my medication, but you got some things going on that you may need to speak to Mallory about that it's preventing you from taking your medication. So now you're undetectable. Now your body has become resistant to the medication. And now we're having unprotected sex and you haven't had a conversation with me about it. And guess what? Now I've picked up your virus. So now it's conflicting with
strand of it.
Yeah. Now it's conflicting with my body. So we have to think about that. And there's only so many cocktails. Once the cocktails are gone, we say cocktails, are gone, what happens? Now, there's potential medication that you can't really take to really put you back in the undetectable status that you want to be in. So it's important that when you're dating someone positive, that y'all go to doctors together, y'all both are taking your medication, you're undetectable because life happens. You can have unprotected sex and you don't want to take the risk of not being able to take your medication. I always try to explain HIV to clients. So I know we can't cut the light off, but I'll do it like this. So think of your body as a light bulb. When we leave for work, we cut the light off. When we come back home, we cut it on. So, we constantly do this. So kind of like our bodies. When we wake up, the light's on. When we go to sleep, the lights are off. So when a person has HIV and they're not taking medication, the light is constantly on. Your body's constantly fighting. You might be going to sleep enough, but your body's constantly working. And what would happen if we left these lights on for 3 months and not cut them off? It burns out. HIV literally burns your system out. It burns out your immune system. So you want to make sure you're able to keep your light bulb going. So I would advise anyone who is HIV positive and they're dating a positive person to make sure that you're going to the doctor. Make sure you're having these conversations with your partner. Like, let me see your labs. We're dating. I want to see your labs. No different to me. I'm negative. But if I'm dating someone, and I'll be transparent, I'm on PrEP. Me and my partner at the time, want to engage in unprotected sex. I know for me to protect myself, I need to get on PrEP. So, even though I know he was fine, but for my own mental sake, I have to always check me at the door first. Right. That's to make sure that I'm safe. I can make sure you're safe, but I have to first think about me being safe. And no different if you're positive. I would want to see your labs. Like, hey, are you taking your medication? You have to really engage. We have to be realistic when it comes to sexual experience, especially when you're dealing with those type of things that can be trauma. Because it can be, when dealing with someone tests positive, and I've been working this field for a long time, I would never forget the first 2 people I tested positive. Believe it or not, I tested them back to back. And it was an out-of-body experience. My first positive was a 17-year-old. My second positive was a 56-year-old woman who just got married to a man, didn't know he was positive. So you think about the trauma that can cause starting off. So you have to be really, really, really realistic when it comes to your sexual experience. And if you're my partner, I should be able to communicate to you, hey, this is what's going on. Look, I'm getting on PrEP. This is what's going on with me right now. What's going on with you? My medication is not working. We can't have unprotected sex until my medication is working again. We have to have those realistic conversations because of what can happen after.
Right.
So.
Right. I think that was one of the things that when I maybe 2 or 3 years into it, I learned about that. I was like, wait a minute. So you could transfer that and then
stop working on this.
I can't remember who it was, but they came in with the little board and it was just like, this won't work. So it kind of narrows your chances. And then that's when you kind of see people on these multiple pill regimens, because you can't take the single pill regimens anymore because now you're resistant to 2 of the drugs or 3 of the drugs. And I think that was a big misconception. People used to be like, oh, well, I'm positive, he positive, we don't got to worry about. No, you might want to, because when it's time to do the little test and you're resistant to so many drugs,
it just gives you more options to stay on top of it. So one thing that I'm going to take away from here is just no matter your status, love. Like, you still have to put yourself first. Check in with yourself, what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, and, you know, take the steps to educate yourself, be healthy, protect yourself, no matter what your partner's status is. So, and love is...
I think somebody just explained to me one time. I'm just kidding. But no, it's just like somebody broke it down to me. It's literally, all it takes is one time. Like, one time. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you don't think about that sometimes, but it's one time. Like, one time.
And I think even like with all of us working at St. Hope, we've all had patients come to us on different levels. And I know, like, even with Larry, the way he said he spoke to a 17-year-old, and I know with you guys being like in case management, you are like the first point of contact. You have counseling, and they may reveal certain things, and I'm at the front desk, so we all have relationships, and we hear these stories from patients, and they will just burst out into tears sometimes. And let's just be real, like, that's really what happens. They burst into tears like, I was in love. I thought this guy or girl was for me, so we engaged and did X, Y, Z, and now here I am, and I don't know what to do. So
should have never trusted him.
Yeah.
And then it's just even one of the things I remember, you know, like sometimes people, you know, it's life, and I always kind of just want to remind people just like not to beat yourself up about it, because things happen, you know, like I had somebody and, you know, he was like, I knew better. I was on PrEP, you know, missed a couple of doses, still engaged. And, you know, it literally just, it can happen to anybody, but don't beat yourself up about it.
Right. Educate yourself.
Yeah.
We're human.
Yeah.
You know, we make mistakes, and that's okay.
I think that's the beautiful thing about St. Hope also, that it's a one-stop shop. The person coming, they can talk to Mallory about their experience, and they can go back and talk to the doctor about the options they have. You know, they can get their medication right there, so they can get everything they need in one spot, you know. And I think that's a beautiful thing when engaging when it comes to that sexual experience with someone dealing with their status. And, you know, love is beautiful, and I think that we love all our clients, you know. I think that's a beautiful thing overall, so, yeah.
And I always just, I'm just talking, I'm chatty today. But I'm always just like, you know, just if you feel comfortable with anybody, any staff member, I always just tell them, if you feel inclined to say something, just go ahead and say it. Because I know it's plenty of times where people might not disclose everything to the physician. They may disclose things to me. You know, you may disclose something to front desk, you may disclose something to pharmacy, but as long as you're disclosing it so that we can better help you. You know, because I think sometimes people just get so nervous, or they're just like, well, I don't want to say this, or Mr. Ajai, can you go and tell the physician this? Yes, of course. Like, I will. What you need me to say? You know,
I'll be your voice.
You know, I'll be your voice, and that's what I love about working here is, even if you feel like your voice is small, you can tell us, and we're gonna make sure you get what you need. Yeah, yeah. Cause me, I mean, my physicians they know me well. I'll be anything. I'll be like,
what happened was same.
Oh.
Like me, I got a little sunburn on my eye. I was like, Dr. Sims, look.
Yeah, that's me.
So yeah, very much so. So always ask questions too. Just ask questions. Ask anybody, and we'll just direct you to the right person.
Right.
Oh, and with PrEP, there are, I know there is a question that popped up last minute that just came to my head, because I've had a patient ask, pricing wise, when it comes to PrEP, I know some people are like, oh my God, this is probably going to cost me a fortune just because I'm having to buy this every single month.
So PrEP can be experienced, but the beautiful thing is there are options for them. You know, there are patient assistance programs for them. And, you know, if you're on insurance, there's ways to get you on PrEP. You just have to be willing to go through the options. And they can speak to case management about that, and come talk to Ajai, come talk to Rachel. If you're having some concerns, you can talk to Mallory about it. I mean, I still have clients. I haven't worked in prevention in almost 3 years. I miss prevention. I still have clients call me about testing. You know, you make them feel comfortable. So I still, even some of the clients who see me who I've tested that are positive, you know, when they see me, what's up? You know, like they are excited because, you know, you made them feel comfortable to be there, and they are still, it's exciting to see them still go through the process of taking care of themselves. And I mean, self-love, we talk about love, self-love is the key, because if I don't love me, I can't love you. You gotta love me.
Say it again.
So,
Run that back. Run that back.
so, and I mean, that's always the explanation for any client. Like, you have to, like, I'm a firm believer, I know how I feel about God and stuff, and not just to add that in there, but, where you came here by yourself, you're gonna leave by yourself. So start off loving you and making sure that you're okay, and then you can make sure no one is okay if you're not okay. So I would just engage, like, find a person there that you're comfortable talking with and that you love, and love yourself, and back to PrEP. But there are options, but come speak to our case management about it. There's options whether you're self-pay or you have insurance. And I know because I get my PrEP at St. Hope. So.
Yes, it's copay cards for insured patients. For uninsured patients, you do have to go through the patient assistance program. If you are approved, you will get it at no cost. That's right, no cost. But you have to come see us and talk to case management. You have to get your labs. You can't just come and say, "Oh, I want PrEP." Okay, you got to get some labs, baby.
Like, there's levels.
That's because that's surprisingly, that's when a lot of people find out too, because that's like a lot of times people's first time getting tested, and you're coming in, you're trying to do the right thing, and you're like, oh,
we're just being realistic for everybody out there listening.
You like, I want to get on PrEP, and it's just like, oh, when was your last? And so, sometimes people say they never got tested, and then unfortunately in situations like that, that's like the first time people find out. But I mean, it's still other options for you. It's always an option. That's what I like to explain to people. There is always an option. You just have to be willing to come in and work with us and allow us to work with you. And we gonna make it happen. Because case management, we hold it down.
And if you need help, how to have those conversations, working on self-love, anything like that, feel free to come see me or, any of the other counselors here. That's what we're here for.
It has been such a pleasure to have you guys and just having this beautiful conversation, all the information. That's the one thing I always love. Y'all always dropping gems. Yes. Every time I just leave with so much information. But before I have to let you go, do y'all have anything that you would like to say to the listeners? Anything that we didn't cover? Any little gems you want to drop? This is your time to do it.
I just want to say that whether you're HIV positive or not, you're all worthy of love. You're all worthy of having a partner who loves you back and respects you, and to advocate for yourself if you need to. Don't be afraid to ask questions, educate yourself, be informed, have power, I guess, like over yourself. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for having me.
I love you. So I'll just keep it simple for me. As Jennifer Hudson said, love is a thing. So self-love is the most important thing you can ever do for yourself. Protect yourself, educate yourself, and know that you're worthy of being healthy, whether it's your sexual health or mental health. You're worthy of being loved, and there's someone out there for each and every one of us. So remember, there's a lot of fish in the sea, and there's one person perfect for you. But before that perfect person, you have to be perfect for yourself.
Feeling all inspired and feeling all fuzzy and okay. Self-love is the best love. Y'all not saying, huh?
But just to close out, if you have any questions or you would like to get tested, you need any education, please visit us on the website at offeringhope.org. Use the chat feature, or you can give us a call at 713-778-1300. And remember, at St. Hope,
you're more than just a number.